never gonna make it. You're not good enough. There's a million other people with the same stuff. You really think you're different? Man, you must be kidding. Think you're gonna hit it, but you just don't get it. It's impossible, it's not probable, you're irresponsible. Too many obstacles, you gotta stop it, yo. You gotta take it slow, you can't be a pro. Don't waste your time no more. Who the are you to tell me what to do? I don't give a if you say you disapprove. I'm gonna make my move, I'm gonna make it soon. And I'll do it cause it's what I wanna do. Cause all these opinions and all these positions, they come in millions, they blocking your vision. But no, you can't listen, that shit is all fiction. Cause you hold the power as long as you're driven. There's no way that you make it. And maybe you can fake it, but you're never gonna make it. Oh, will you fight?
Tastes like the 1 seed. How are we doing, guys? Welcome to Game Day from the UK, another Miami Heat UK live pre-game streaming show. Here tonight to preview the penultimate game of the season, the last at the FTX in the regular season against the Atlanta Hawks as your number 1 seed in the conference. Let's introduce the cast. Ollie Rahimi, how are you, sir?
I'm very well, mate. It seems like it's been a while. You look like you've got a tan. Had a great holiday.
It's fading a little bit. It doesn't last long, does it? It doesn't last long. I came back to snow, literally. So it doesn't last long, does it? Bilal Monar, how are you, sir?
Yeah, I'm doing good. I'm happy to be back in the 1 seed as well.
It's locked up. It is locked up. We are going to get into all of it. It's great stuff. Yeah. Sorry, it's been a while, guys. This is our first show in a couple of weeks. My bad. I took a little vacay to the 305. I just want to say, starting from there, of course, one more thank you, huge thank you to the Miami Heat and everybody that looked after me while I was over there. Cedric Brown, especially, Will Manso, Kristen Hewitt, Tony Fiorentino, all these guys that took the time out to see me, speak to me, etc., and bring me down onto court. Incredible experience with my own personalised jersey. Where my heroes play, the history. Watch this team 500-600 times, and to be on that court. Magical experience, even though the actual result of that game was horrific. But we won't go there. Because, fortunes have changed, guys. Since I've sort of watched the transition, we was on a 4-game losing streak. The teams were fighting each other. Now, all of a sudden, 5 wins on the trot. 1 seed is locked up. Let's start right there. Ollie, what's your main thought or takeaway from what was such disarray just 2 weeks ago to now being in harmony, looking sharp, winning games comfortably? What's the main thing you put this down to?
So when all this has happened, when we, when the Jimmy and Spo argument happened, I put out a little bit of a conspiracy theory kind of tweet thread that Jimmy Butler engineered this himself. He did this. He wanted this to happen because his whole life he's been overlooked. He's been over God knows how many experiences in his career, in his personal life as well. Like, the guy was homeless when he was younger. He had to come through junior college. Like, he's always been overlooked and he's always been the underdog, but that's how he performs best, when his back's up against the wall. And I think he created, again, it's a long shot. It's probably a bit of a conspiracy theory, but him creating this argument with Spo and Haslam, who are the Heat darlings, like, no Miami Heat fan is going to go against Spo and UD. He created a common enemy for everybody, and it was himself. And then he turned that around, and he's been performing brilliantly since then. He's found his 3-point shot again, which he hasn't had for almost 2 years.
Yeah.
And yeah, the team it looks like all of a sudden we've just clicked at the perfect time. So yeah, maybe it's a long shot, maybe it's not. If he did orchestrate it, then he is an absolute genius. But we're peaking at the right time, so it's all going well. And long may it continue, I think.
Yeah, I'm 100%. I mean, I'm always for a little bit of conspiracy, a bit of looking outside the box. You wouldn't surprise it. I mean, when you look at when that all happened, the sort of furore around the league, we had people like, UD and Dwayne Wade, etc., saying, this is just a Tuesday for the Heat. This happens all the time. So as you say, peaking at the right time. Now, Bilal, the 1 seed in a stacked Eastern Conference, the Heat were predicted, I think, to finish with about 48 wins this year. If we win out the season, we'll finish with 54. The Brooklyn Nets, the Milwaukee Bucks, the 76ers, they're all predicted to finish above us. I think maybe even Boston as well. in a very, very brutal conference. We should be celebrating this, right? This is an achievement. Whatever happens now, whoever we come up against, we've locked down the 1 seed in a very competitive conference. Therefore, home advantage all the way through. This should be celebrated, right? This is an achievement.
100%. I don't think any of us, even when we did the pre-game show at the start of the year, we expected them Heat to be at the first seed. Max, I think we said 2 or 3 maybe, and 2 was even pushing it. I think I said 5. So even I'm surprised with myself. So it is something to celebrate, especially this year. This is the best as a collective the East has looked for God knows how long. It's like it's flipped this year. Usually it's the West that looks like this, and now this year's the East that's looked like this. So it's really, really important that we got that 1 seed. So the whole Eastern Conference comes through the FTX arena at the 305. So hopefully this is something we should definitely celebrate.
Yeah, and if we win tonight, and we'll come on to tonight's game in a minute, but we actually lock up the best record, home record in the NBA as well, or in the Eastern Conference, I think, as well, which again sort of proves why getting that 1 seed is a very important step. And yeah, hats off to them because, we've no real superstar in the league, and I don't think that's disrespectful. No real superstar in the league. There is something to be said about just how well this group have come together, how well coached this team is. So yeah, celebrate it 100%. Ollie, another sort of key thing that has happened since we last spoke, and a reason for maybe the turnaround in the Heat's change of fortunes in terms of results after that 4-game skid, is a change to the starting 5, change to the lineup with Duncan Robinson slipping out and Max Strus now getting his chance. Now, Max Strus, we only said, 4 weeks ago, that he was probably not going to be getting any minutes really now. We were sort of writing him out of the rotation. We was actually calling him, saying he had a bit of a mini slump and maybe that was his season done. And now he's a starter again and producing, impacting results. Do you think that that's got something to do with it, the change in system or the change in personnel to the starting lineup?
Yeah, I think it has a little bit. Max throughout the season has been a lot better when he's started games. When we had that stretch where we were missing Lowry and Jimmy and Bam, he stepped up and whenever he started a game, he's always been a lot better than he has coming off the bench. And I think, I don't know, he just seems to fit at the moment. Duncan's obviously had his struggles this season. He's been hot and cold. And Max has as well, no doubt about that. Like you just said, we were talking about him not being in the rotation 6 weeks ago, and now he looks like he's probably going to be the starting shooting guard going into the playoffs. It just shows how volatile basketball can be in a sense of, your luck can change from game to game. And there's no reason to say that he is going to be the starting shooting guard. He might drop 2 clangers in the next 2 games and then start the series. If he starts in the starting 5 in this first series, he might do terribly, and then we might see Duncan back in, or we might even see Tyler Hero or Victor Oladipo, which is probably a long shot. So, yeah, I mean, anything can happen, but it's credit to him, it's credit to the work that he's put in, and he deserves to be there at the moment, and it's working well. Duncan's finding his shot off the bench as well with Tyler, and having Duncan and Tyler come off the bench together when they're both hot, that is the best scoring duo coming off of the bench in the league by some distance, in my opinion. You've got the 6th man of the year and then an elite 3-point sniper coming off the bench. There's no bench unit that can handle that, I don't think.
No, I really like it, and I think that's that. I spoke last night in my pod with Wes Goldberg from Locked On Heat. I said exactly that. I said, look, you've got Tyler already, as you just said, 6th man of the year, producing 20-odd points a game. And then now you're adding Duncan Robinson to that. And, we saw him come off the bench in the last game. What did he drop down? 7 threes, 6 threes, 20-something points off the bench. This could be vital. This could be a real good tweak at just the right time. So interesting to see how it finishes. Bilal, with 2 games left of the regular season and the 1 seed now locked up, we're going to come on to implications of what tonight could mean in a minute. But first of all, Atlanta Hawks, Orlando Magic left. 1 seed locked. What do you do in terms of the starters here? Do you rest them? Do you not risk any form of injury, any form of any little tweaks or anything like that? Or do you think, look, whatever happens now at the end of the season, there's still a week to recover, give them some game time, keep them in rhythm, and play the starters for both of these games?
See, that is a tough one, but I think a lot of people are talking about on Twitter. So personally, I feel like we should play the starters today against the Hawks and then rest them against the Magic. I would just say that just in case, if you do want to avoid a Brooklyn in the first round, it's better to put away the Hawks. And especially Hawks is someone that we could see in the first round. So it's good to get some kind of idea of what is going to happen if we do play them. So I would suggest play the starters today, get them ready, get them still having a feel for the game, and then they'll have like a whole week and a bit of rest. Then Magic, we can play our G League guys. So I would say that starters today, and then Sunday rest.
Okay, fair. Ollie, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm the same. I think that's a really good shout, Bilal. I think tonight play them, even if it's just for a half, and then rest them for Sunday. I think one thing on a personal level for Bam, he's obviously on this little media tour at the moment, trying to push his name out for Defensive Player of the Year. He needs to play the games, I think, because the argument was always he's not played enough games to win Defensive Player of the Year. So if he appears in both of those games, I think that might help his cause. And just if he can go out tonight and not care about anything else and just try and be as defensively solid as possible, he might have himself a Defensive Player of the Year award, which we all hope for. So, yeah, I reckon.
Good stuff. Yeah, I agree. I think that we will see the players start tonight because it's a big game tonight. It's a massive game. I'm going to come on to it in a second. I was going to answer this question from Chris saying, "Great to have me back," etc. How good was KD up close? I'll be honest, it was miserable because he butchered us. That game was competitive for one quarter, and then it was awful watching. To watch KD was obviously a delight because he's the best basketball player in the world. But yeah, from a Heat point of view, I watched it with my hands in my head for 3/4 of that game. So up and down with that one. Tonight, then, guys, Atlanta Hawks. It's a massive game tonight. We can't rest on our laurels here. We've locked up our one seed. We've got our home advantage, but we can basically avoid the Brooklyn Nets tonight with a win against the Atlanta Hawks. Now, Bilal, before we come to the Hawks, let's just touch on the Nets. The organisation are saying they're not really fussed who they play. They're not, we'll come up against who we come up against. That's not our concern. We'll be prepared for it. We'll be locked in for it. But where you can, if it's in our hands tonight, if we beat the Hawks tonight, we don't play the Nets in the first round. We don't play Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving. We don't play them. We missed them out. Tonight's important in that sense, isn't it? They are playing hard. They have got to play hard too because they are going for that 8 seed. If they get in the 8 seed, they get a second chance. If they lose, then they get a second chance. So they're playing fighting for their second bite of the cherry as well. So if we can avoid Brooklyn, you do that, don't you?
Yeah, definitely. Like I said before, we should put them away today. Play our starters. Have one last game with the home fans as well. And then we rest them against the Magic. But I really think it's important that we do actually beat them today. And Ollie made a good point about Bam and Defensive Player of the Year because he missed a lot of time, so he does need to rack up the games.
Yeah, definitely. Atlanta have been disappointing, haven't they, this year, Ollie? I mean, I done a preview show with a couple of the Heat Beat guys, and I think Giancarlo Navas seeded them. This is before the season started. It was on the eve of the season. Seeded the Hawks at I think a 2 seed because he said, look, they've just come off of the finals. They're a fun team. They're going to roll it back. They're a dangerous team. They're a good regular season team, and it hasn't happened at all from this year. They're still going to be a tough matchup, and this could very well be the first round matchup. In fact, I predicted this would be the first round matchup about a month ago, and it's still very much on. As I said, for them tonight, this could be the first round preview, couldn't it?
Yeah, it could be. I just want to caveat what you guys were just saying just now about if we win tonight, we definitely avoid Brooklyn. It's not definite. Obviously, if they lose the play-in game and then win the second one, then we would probably face them as the 8 seed. But that's probably unlikely. So it is fair to assume that they're going to win and go 7th. But yeah, the Hawks. It looked really exciting for them last season with Trae Young and John Collins and this young core that they had that was really explosive, really, really fun to watch as well. And then, it's just derailed this season. Collins has missed a lot of time and it's just not been as good. Trae Young's been fantastic again. But I think a lot of people probably expected them to be at least in that middle bracket of the playoffs. And for them to be where they are, they'd probably be disappointed. But if you kind of take a step back and look at the grand scheme of things, they are not as good as the top 6, 7 teams in the East at the moment, because as we've said, the East is stacked, and 1 through 7, arguably 8, is really, really elite. So yeah, they're probably the odd one out, which is unfortunate for them, but I still think they've got a bright future. Trae Young's an excellent player. Same with John Collins if he sticks around. DeAndre Hunter and stuff as well. So yeah, they've got a bright future, but I'm sure they'll be disappointed with the season.
Yeah, I'm sure they will. And yeah, you make a good point. Sorry, I always sort of forget that I just take for granted that Brooklyn are just going to win their playing game because it's probably going to be against the Cavs. You'd expect in a one-off game them to get that through, but of course you are right. There is still every chance that we could play them if they lose that. So, but yeah, you'd expect them to get through. So tonight goes a long way towards avoiding the Nets, but of course not impossible. Bilal, quickly looking ahead, then, as I said, could very well be the Hawks in the first round or the Cavs. They're probably the two most likely. Hornets still with an outside chance, of course. But then it looks almost certain now that the 4-5 seed will be Sixers Raptors. So we could be looking at a route to the finals here. Now, let's not get too ahead of ourselves, of course. But as a bracket, it could be Hawks, Sixers or Raptors, but probably you'd nudge Sixers ahead. And then, of course, in either a Bucks, Nets or Celtics final. That's not the worst, is it?
No, that is the ideal scenario for the Heat, because obviously we would like to avoid the Bucks, the Celtics, them two preferably until the Eastern Conference Finals, because we tend to have the most struggles against those two teams. Also alluding to your points earlier, Dan, Brooklyn do play the Cavs today, so that has implications on who gets the home court in that seeded matchup. And another thing as well, I did actually predict the Hawks to go fourth or a higher seed as well. And I'm glad that no one remembered that. So
yeah, great stuff. Elliot's in the chat here. He's absolutely spot on with what he's saying here, saying, could this be one of the best playoff series we've ever seen? Well, in a long time. I would say ever. I don't think I've ever, I mean, I know I've not been following this as nearly as long as, some of you other guys, but there's generally 5 teams that could get to the finals here, legitimate contenders. There won't be any sweeps, I don't think. As I said, there are many first round series here that could go all the way to 7. And, as I say, it's going to be brutal, whatever it is. Ollie, you've come off mute. What do you think?
Yeah, I think I just want to touch on that. I think you're right. I think 1 through 7 at the moment, if you assume that Brooklyn will go to 7 and then either the Cavs or the Hawks will be 8, arguably 1 through 7 is good enough to make it to the finals. But I just wanted to mention about that Philly-Toronto series, if that is the matchup. There's a lot of news coming out about obviously the Toronto vaccine mandate and laws around that. Apparently there's a couple of key players for the Sixers that aren't vaccinated that would not be eligible to play in Toronto. So personally, I'm looking at it and thinking, well, James Harden's gone a bit cold of late. They haven't spent a lot of time together really gelling. The Sixers in the last 5-6 years have had very limited playoff success. And if they do miss some key guys going up to Toronto, I don't fancy them as much as some people do. I don't think it'll be as easy for them as people think it will be.
No. And it's a good point, because I was very high on the Sixers. In fact, I labelled them the favourites when that trade was made. And it's not really been sort of sweet and sugar, is it? It's all been a little bit bitty. There's been a bit of tension. There's a lot of sort of disarray on Sixers Twitter. Doc Rivers is getting a lot of hate for his late game time management. Yeah, they're you're right. If that's the case, you probably almost then start to favour Toronto in that series. But we'll see. We'll see what goes down. Question here from Stephen. Don't the Celtics have the same deal going if they face Toronto? Yes, they do. I think you're right, because, they've got a couple of players, we believe, that also are unvaccinated. But look, there's 2 games left. It could swing either way. The seedings change all the time. But of course, not now with Miami. Let's just get some predictions then on tonight's game, guys. A big game, a huge game. Last big sort of test before we can maybe relax with the Orlando game and get some well-deserved rest. It's not going to be easy. I think the Heat are pretty much at full health. I think there's a couple of questionables. As we know, Collins is out, obviously, for the Hawks. I think Bogdanovic is also questionable, but otherwise I think they're relatively healthy. Should be a tough game, should be a fun game. Bilal, what do you think?
Yeah, if the starters play, I see a Heat comfortable victory just by 10. If they don't play, I would lean to the Hawks because they need it more than us.
Yeah, as I said, it's an important game for them because they want that second bite of the cherry. They don't really want to go into that 9-10 matchup against the Hornets. You'd expect them to win that, but both are very attacking teams. They'd want that second bite without a doubt. So they'll be playing hard tonight. Heat by 10 from Bilal. Ollie, what do you think?
Yeah, I think if the starters play, if our regular unit plays, I think we'll be all right. Obviously, PJ Tucker's out, but I think it'll be Heat by sort of 5 to 10. And yes, we need Pepas. Haven't heard that in a while. Yeah, I think if it's the regular starters, it'll be Heat by 5 to 10. But I think if it's not, if it is the reserve guys, I think we'll win by a bigger margin because they will be playing for a rotation place in the playoffs, I think, and they will go hard. So I would prefer. I think the Heat would do better with the reserve guys tonight, just because they've got a little bit more to play for, those guys. So either way, I think the Heat will win. Just hopefully it's a big one.
That's a good take. Yeah, it's a good take. I think that maybe the second half or the fourth quarter of this game, and then the Orlando game coming up, we will see some hard minutes from people like Oladipo, Gabe Vincent. Maybe even some of the guys even further down the line, Yurts of them we might see. So that's a good shout. I'm going to complete the board. Obviously, I'm going to say it's going to be a Heat win. I think it's going to be quite tight. I think that there'll be no more. I don't think any of the starters will play more than 30 minutes tonight. I think that hopefully we'll get the job done, and then maybe that lead will dwindle a little bit. I'll say higher single figures, maybe let's say Heat by 8, but we'll get the job done in front of the home crowd for the last time in the regular season. Pepas will be belting, hopefully. Guys, great show. Great to be back. Before we go, you may have seen the Twitter feed earlier. I put out a gauge the interest sort of tweet there to talk about a Heat London-based watch party. This will be in the second round of the playoffs, assuming we get there, of course. The response has been phenomenal. Lots of people saying, yes, definitely would be up for that. Just to give you an insight, it will more than likely be at Belushi's in London, which is by Tower Bridge. Absolutely fantastic place. It's made for this sort of thing. Basically, downstairs, they got a whole area which has got about 8 different areas where you can have your own private party with your own screen. And they literally say what game, what sport, they'll put it on for you. So we'll have an area to ourselves. So if you're watching back or if you're watching live, nearer the time when we know the dates, it will hopefully, it will need to be a weekend because it should be messy. We'll obviously put some details out about that. But if you're interested in coming, watch out for the Twitter feed because there'll be more details to come on that. That'd be great to see you all. Guys, great show. Great to be back. Let's get a Heat win tonight. We'll be back on Sunday night, I think, to preview the very last game of the regular season from your 1 seed against the Orlando Magic. But let's end the season well in front of the FTX Arena tonight. Let's go Heat. Thanks for joining us, guys.